Evening, everyone. Welcome to another Peaceful Solution Character Education Teacher Certification class. You can be seated for those who are local here, and welcome to all those who are watching us online, again, who might be joining us as we continue in this intermediate series that we're moving forward in. We are in Unit 4, Respect Unit. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, as mentioned before, David mentioned it, many other of the teachers have mentioned it. You can also download the book for free on the Facebook page in the click down menu next to the Peaceful Solution, just underneath that official Peaceful Solution title there. And you can follow right along with us as we move through this unit. Now, the previous units are also there as well, character, acceptance, and self-control, so that you can go back and review and kind of get caught up to where we are to this point. But today we are going to continue in what we've been covering in regards to respect. And we are, of course, in the third chapter here. This is entitled Respect Others. Now, in the first two chapters, we talked about what respect is, and then, respect or value, learning about the value of respect in chapter 1. And then in chapter 2, we talked about respect for ourselves or myself, right? Because like we always point out, that it's important to understand what the definition of the character trait that we're learning is. And this is why it's laid out that, remember, we talk about like the foundation, right? Having this foundation laid, and it's nice and it's solid, and then from there you can build these building blocks of character on it and move forward, and it gives us a solid understanding of how to go from one concept to another, right? And all these things that we're given here, they're all extremely beneficial for, ultimately us having a well-rounded positive character where we can distinguish between what's right, what's wrong, what's positive, what's negative, what's beneficial, what's harmful, and so forth, and make decisions that will be, of course, as we learn, right choices, ones that don't bring harm to ourselves, others, and the environment, ones that are essentially beneficial. So we're in chapter 2, or chapter 3, I mean. Chapter 2, I was just looking at that as we reviewed that, respect for myself. But we're in chapter 3 in regards to, or talking about, respect others, because we can't get away from the fact that we live in a society where we're interdependent. There's a little over 8 billion people on the face of this earth at this time. Now, we don't come into contact with all 8 billion people at any one given time, but our actions can affect people all the way on the other side of the globe, right? Think about it. When somebody makes a decision, and you have people who are in high political offices, and it doesn't even have to be a high political office, a person who might be a leader of a government, a leader of a nation, maybe a military leader. Sometimes people can make decisions that could escalate into war. And it can draw in and bring in other nations, and people who seem to suffer the most are the victims of war. The victims, the people who are displaced, the people whose lands are bombed and houses are destroyed, and they can't provide a living for their family. So, one person's actions or a couple people's actions can affect people halfway across the globe. I mean, just think about how the actions of a few men on 9/11, which that was kind of the end result of a culmination of things, but how the actions of those few people almost totally revamped the airline industry, right? And how we are able to fly, and the things that we have to do to be able to fly. I remember when I was young, and I mentioned this before, in Cleveland, growing up in Cleveland, I used to occasionally like to just hop on the train, and go to the Cleveland Hopkins International Airport and just walk right in the terminal and, through the little turnstiles, and just go right there and just watch the planes take off and land. It was just kind of peaceful and enjoyable to me. Can't do that anymore. Can't do that anymore. You can't even stand outside the gate and look at, a plane take off and land, at least not not in the United States, it's pretty well guarded. But just those actions, they changed the whole airline industry and how we fly. Okay, so it's important that we understand why first off, what respect is, why we need to have respect for ourselves, and as David covered, the VAR, the value, appreciate, and respect, and that in turn will lead us to understand how to better have respect for other people. Because if you don't have respect for yourself, right, how are you going to be able to empathize? How are you going to be able to have compassion? How are you going to be able to put yourself in someone else's shoes? How are you going to see another life as valuable? And this is why these foundations have to be laid at the very beginning. So now we're going to continue here, picking up where David left off last class, and he finished on page 57, so we're going to be picking up on page 58. But before we go there, I'd like to back it up a little bit. Let's go back to lesson plan 3, page E. And so this is an activity that started on page D here under procedure 5, because this is actually activity 2, and on lesson plan 3, page E, at the very top, you see it says language of respect. Okay, so this is what we're looking at here in regards to the scenarios. And these scenarios, I tell you, if you're in a teaching situation and you get the opportunity, try to make these scenarios enjoyable, right? I mean, in the class here, we don't have the time and the resources and everything to act these things out, but when you're dealing with a lot younger people, and even older people, I personally like acting too a lot, I might be an overactor sometimes, but, it can be enjoyable. It makes the lessons come alive. It helps them to stick in the minds of the student even more so. Kind of like when you watch, a video of something as opposed to just hearing about it, right? You retain a lot more of that information because you see the words, so to speak, in action. Okay, and so you're engaged in a lot more of your senses than just listening. And so here at the very top it says scenarios on page 58 can be dramatized. Okay, and it says have students read the scenarios and then instruct them to first role play the scene without the language of respect. And as we're going to see here, there's the scenario where respect is not given, and then, there's one where it is, and then we're going to get them to flip it here as we move forward in the description here. Point out to students that when both characters in the scenario are being disrespectful, the situation can easily become problematic. After a brief discussion, have students role play the scenario again where respect is shown and a peaceful solution is reached. Now, the thing about this is you're not just leaving your students, kind of like having fun, with the negativity, the negative aspect at the very end of the class. You want them to be able to even kind of brainstorm, because it's not really given here in the scenario, as we're going to see on page 58, that opposite one where the language of respect is used is not given. So they're going to have to brainstorm. They're going to have to think about language, how to apply the language of respect. And of course, we went, David covered some of these aspects here about communication, the language of respect, communicating respectfully, and so forth. So, which means they had to have been paying attention in the previous classes to make this scenario a success. Let's look back there. It says, if you look at after a brief discussion, okay. After a brief discussion, have students role play the scenario again where respect is shown and a peaceful solution is reached. And then it says here on procedure 6, tell students, because this goes along with the scenario. That's why we're reading it right now. Tell students that along with positive, respectful communication, they can show respect to others by appreciating diversity. And so this is kind of how you're going to wrap it up after you complete the scenarios here, the 4 scenarios. People come from all different countries, have different values, and are different sizes and shapes. But regardless of our differences, everyone deserves respect. Guide class discussion by asking the following questions. A, what would be some of the negative consequences of not respecting people with different cultures and nationalities? And of course, some of the answers should include the development of behaviors as bitterness, anger, hate, and even war between people and nations. And I think that, it would be pretty easy to, even if a lot of the classes nowadays, they have, whiteboards and televisions and access to the internet, where the teacher has access to the internet. As a teacher, you can draw off of, maybe like a source like Google or WHO or, some of the, there's a lot of international sites that kind of tell you the current status of even wars, the amount of wars that are taking place all throughout the world, or the statistics of violence or domestic assaults and things like that. All these things are a result of disrespect being shown, respect not being practiced, people not being educated in the language of respect, because there's a lot of situations where the opportunity is there for a crisis or a conflict to be de-escalated if at least one person chose to practice the language of respect. But the problem is that people kind of get puffed up with that pride, and they don't want to be the first to back down. Well, in the peaceful solution, we're not telling you necessarily to back down, that is to back down from doing the right thing. We're telling you to step up to do the right thing. And sometimes stepping up to do the right thing in a situation where there's a conflict might mean walking away, right? But there has to be a time when that's appropriate. Don't do that when you're dealing with a parent. Don't do that when you're dealing with a police officer. They do not like when you turn and walk away from them, right? You'll get introduced to their friend, Mr. Taser. So there's a time and a place for everything. But this is where learning this information and not just breezing over it, but seeing how and when these concepts can be applied, because not every concept can be applied to every circumstance, okay? And as the teacher, we're supposed to be very diversified in our understanding of the peaceful solution so that we can guide our students on how to put these principles into practice as they encounter different conflicts throughout the day. Letter B there, it says, what are some of the benefits derived from respecting and appreciating diversity? And some of the answers could include mutual respect that breeds healthy and productive relationships. So let's look over here to page 58. And we have 4 scenarios here. And at the very top there, it says, read the following scenarios and indicate if respect was shown. On the lines provided, describe how respect was or was not shown. And that's all we have for instructions on that. So as a teacher, you can see if you don't read, the procedures that are given, you're going to miss out on the point where you have to act out where the language of respect is shown, right? You're just going to look at, okay, you go with the scenario, and then that's it. So let's look at scenario 1 there. It says, Andy politely asked his friend Mike to stop using his pens without first asking his permission. Mike rolled his eyes while Andy was speaking. And remember some of the things that David talked about last class with the body language and, eye rolling and so forth. That's usually a definite sign of disrespect, or a definite sign of you not necessarily not listening, but you not caring about what the speaker is saying, right? The whole eye roll thing is like, here we go again. I've heard that before. And you see this a lot in teenagers, okay? And I think it might be a genetic defect, in teenagers where they can't control their eyes, but especially when their parents are telling them something again, or even their teacher is telling them something again, because as teachers and parents, sometimes we can feel like we're on repeat quite a bit and repeating the instructions over and over because it takes a consistent pattern of teaching before something gets locked into the mind. Remember, as it's been brought on in the previous classes, it doesn't until about the age 25 years is the brain pretty much in a kind of fully developed stage. Right now, it's still got a lot to go from that point on, but it takes a lot of repetition to get a person to the point where they finally hear and appreciate what's being taught to them enough so to stop and think before they make a choice. What was it that, mom or dad or teacher or principal or the counselor always said this? Now I finally see why they're saying that, right? And they find the benefit a lot later on in life because at that point when they're younger, they don't appreciate it. So he rolled his eyes while Andy was speaking. The next time Mike needed a pen, Andy was out of the room. Mike took Andy's pen and used it without permission. Now the question here is, did Mike show Andy respect? And of course, the answer in parentheses here, and your students are going to give you various answers and so forth. No, Mike did not listen to Andy's request and took another pen without asking. All right, so that's one example. Scenario 2, so again, after that, you can have whoever comes up to participate in the skit or whatever, you can have either them or they could reverse it, or another, two people come up and reverse it. Show when the language of respect is practice. Show how showing respect towards the property of others is practice, okay? And if you have more students, you might go ahead and, have another group of people come up to practice the opposite. Now, scenario 2 there is Jeannie accidentally stepped on Margot's shoe. It's occurred many times before. It can occur in a very crowded situation. But before Jeannie could apologize, Margot said, "You overweight gorilla. You stepped on my shoe." Jeannie immediately felt embarrassed. Jeannie attempted to apologize, but Margot interrupted and told her to shut up. Now, did Margot show Jeannie respect? No, she sure didn't. She didn't even listen to Jeannie's apology and realize it was a mistake. Now, and this is a scenario that young people, especially as they start to see the value in the lessons that are presented in the Peaceful Solution, they're going to try to put these things into practice. And we have to encourage them to not be discouraged. Now, let's say Jeannie here was somebody who was in a Peaceful Solution class, right? And she understood that she, unintentional form of disrespect. She stepped on Margot's shoe, right? And Margot impulsively, because she didn't really consider how Jeannie would feel after being called an overweight gorilla, right? Or embarrassing her in front of everybody else. So she made an impulsive choice at that time and lashed out at Jeannie. And Jeannie was trying to do the right thing. She was trying to apologize. She was trying to let Margot know that it was an accident, right? She probably would have offered to wipe off the shoe if she actually got dirt on it, but she didn't even get that opportunity. So these are things that our students might also come in. This is why these scenarios are given, because these are things that they have and potentially will face in real life. But you notice here that Jeannie did not retaliate. Jeannie did not lash back at Margot because of her disrespect. She did not respond to Margot's disrespect with more disrespect. And so those are the things we have to encourage our students. Even in these scenarios, we show the proper way to conduct ourselves, even if somebody else is flying off the handle and not practicing self-control. Let's go to scenario 3 there. Camille and Tina are friends, but Camille always tells Tina what to do. Whenever Tina tries to give her opinion, Camille interrupts and says, "Let's just do it my way. It's easier." Well, does Camille show Tina respect? Of course, Camille won't know because she won't allow her friends to speak up. That's some of the other things we talked about in communicating respectfully, not interrupting while another person is talking. When you do interrupt while someone's talking, it really kind of shows that person that you're not really listening to them. That what they're saying at that moment is not important because people they already have their minds on what they're going to say next. right? Or they're already, and I think we've all been in that situation. We might be excited about something, or something we know about, or we want to, tell somebody something about, and they're telling us something, and we're just thinking about that one thing that we want to tell them. And sometimes we might be unintentional. We kind of jump the gun and, oh yeah, but, did you hear about such and such and such, or did you see this taking place, or, or this is coming out, or we're going to have tomorrow off, or, you know what I mean? And it can be unintentional, but it is still a form of disrespect. And that person who is speaking, they can feel like, well, okay, I guess what I'm saying is not really that important, and sometimes people will speak louder. Sometimes they'll voice the fact that you just interrupted them. Sometimes people will just withdraw and not say anything anymore. Okay, so we have to be aware of our own selves in these situations, and teach our students to be aware of themselves. These lessons, we have to internalize these things. They have to internalize these things. They have to see, and this is why the STOP acronym is so important, because we constantly have to stop and think about our options. We have to consider the choices or the things that are mulling over, the thoughts that we're mulling over in our mind. Is it pertain to what I'm dealing with right now, or is it something that can wait till later? Right? Is what I have to say going to be beneficial? Is it going to show the person who's talking right now that I'm listening to them, I'm hearing what they're saying? Because remember, we talked about that and how to reiterate what the speaker says and so forth when you're communicating, and it lets the person know that you're hearing. Sounds like you're kind of upset because you didn't get as high a score as you wanted on your test or whatever, right? They might not have said that, but you're reiterating some of the things that they're saying. You're reflecting what they're saying, which shows them that you're really listening, instead of going, yeah, oh yeah, that sucks, yeah. Well, anyway, did you hear about such and such? Eventually people are just not going to want to talk to you anymore, because when people go to talk to someone, they generally want to feel like they're being heard. Even if you don't offer them any advice, because sometimes people don't want advice at the time. They just want to kind of unload a heavy weight on their chest or on their shoulders. But if you make them feel like what they're saying, they're saying, or what they're feeling isn't important, they're not going to come to you anymore. They're going to go and find someone else. All right. And let's look at the last scenario there, scenario number 4. It says, Ricky and Bill are brothers. Bill wore Ricky's shirt without asking. And this can be particularly bad if your brother is not one who's fond of hygiene and deodorant, right? And you get those stains in the armpits, and next time you go to put on the shirt, it's like, whoa, who went to the burger joint here and wore my shirt at the same time? Because sometimes you have that. You have one sibling who's extremely particular, and they could be even in the same room. And one's extremely particular. They keep everything organized. They keep their clothes clean. They make their bed up, And then the other one is just like the Tasmanian devil has just went through there and just tore everything up. And they're fine with it, So you have two different personalities in that situation. So he wore his brother's shirt without asking. And Ricky said, I really don't like it when you wear my clothes without asking. Please do not do it again, explained Ricky. I apologize, said Bill. Next time I will ask. Well, did Bill show Ricky respect? In this situation, yes, correct. Bill apologized and said he would remember to ask next time. Now, Ricky could have said, I don't want to hear it. You say that all the time. You need to keep your grubby hands off my clothes. Right? He could have just interrupted him and just cut him off and did kind of like Margot did Jeannie in the situation. But they had, remember, in order to have a success in communication, you need both the speaker and you need a listener, right? Those are at least two things you need. You need other things as well. But in this situation, both Ricky and Bill, who were brothers, showed respect in this situation. So they're not all negative, And in that case, you might not have to reiterate or swap the role play and have it be shown, because there's a lot of negative. Children are very eager to practice the negative side of things, and sometimes they'll go to extremes. So you have to be careful so that no one, they don't take it too far when they're role playing or their skits here. but the positive is what we're looking for. We want that to really stick in their mind. They see so much negativity and the influence of negativity every day. We want to accentuate, remember, we want to, in the minds of, we want to accentuate the positive and eliminate the negative. We acknowledge that it's there. Yes, it's there, but that's not the main focus. All right. I just want to show you how you can have a little bit of fun with these skits. It's only about a minute long. This next skit is one that we did. I think David was showing. We're actually teaching about respect and responding to disrespect and so forth. But the people who are in the skit are, some of the students and teachers of the Peaceful Solution. And, so just to show you how you can kind of, modify and diversify these things in order to get the point across. And some of these things are impromptu, but it's meant to engage and draw the student's mind into the main point that's being shown. So sometimes you have to be a little creative, but we still stick with the lesson. So if we can play that skit there for us.
What is it? Disrespect. Well, we're going to be talking about how to respond to it so you can find ways that you can deal with this disrespect. The traditional way may be something more to hold on just a minute, please. Okay, so the traditional way to respond to disrespect may be something more like, well, I'm going to get back at you, or I'm going to do this, or maybe even, but, okay, come on, what's going on? What are you doing? Excuse me. No, we have a presentation going. No, I'm going first. You guys, come on, guys. Okay, look, wait a minute. I was supposed to go first. I was supposed to go first here. Do you mind? I'll call y'all on here in just a minute if you don't mind. Okay, you'll have your time. Just a few minutes, okay? All right. All right, thank you. I'm sorry about that. I'll tell you, this disrespect, it's funny the way this thing works, because disrespect, you never know if it's going to be intentional, unintentional, or if it's even real, or it could be imagined.
Did David practice the language of respect? Yeah, he did. He could have flew off the handle, and it's funny because we actually have another example where the language of respect was not shown, and a couple of teachers of the Peaceful Solution we did an impromptu skit with a bunch of students in the class, and the students actually thought that the two teachers were getting ready to go at it and have a scrap right in the middle of the classroom. And some of them were actually kind of excited about it, to see some some action for them, But it was just an example, to show them how when things escalate and respect is not shown, right? It's like adding fuel to the fire, and it impressed in their mind. In fact, it was so impromptu that the other teachers who were there, they didn't know what was going on, and they thought that there had been some tension already, that was being unleashed in the class. If I find it. Hopefully, I'll try to bring it as long as it goes with what we're covering here in this lesson. But you can use some creativity in your skits, and I'm telling you, the people really enjoy it. And the next class that comes, they're looking forward to, because we rotated class and so forth. They're looking forward to coming in and listening to what has to be said. So we do have to make it interesting to the students. It's not just going there and reading words off of a page. Yes, we do, but as teachers, it's our job to make those words come alive, to impress it deep within the hearts and the minds of our students so that this change will truly come about. Well, if you look at page 59 there, it's a poem here. It says, kind words show respect. It says, words are important and do affect us. They are like bricks. They build and form us. They are like seeds that, when planted, will grow, and in time, love and respect they do show. Kind words show respect to others. They can make enemies become brothers. And that's from the Peaceful Solution. And that, that is true. It's not hard to swallow your pride if that's what you're dealing with at that time, and say something that builds another person up or just de-escalates the situation. Just the words, you're right, I'm sorry. I didn't consider that. Or I apologize. Or thank you for pointing that out to me. Very powerful words. The problem with society is that the influences that come from Hollywood and come from, movies and video games, they teach that when people take that stance of humility, but it's also a stance of having care and concern for others, that they're weak. It makes it look like that they're displaying weakness in their character. But in fact, in seeking peace, you're demonstrating strength of character, okay? A weak person is one who just lets go and resorts to violence, resorts to war, resorts to retaliation, to name calling, to yelling and so forth, and dealing with other people. Now, just real quick there, hold your page on page 60, and let's jump back to lesson plan 3, page E, and we'll get that last part of procedure 6. It says, It says, have students turn to page 60 through 61 in their handbooks and read the section entitled Respecting Diversity. All right, so let's go back to page 60 there. Just kind of split that up a little bit. And it says, if you look at the very top there in the gray box, it says, we are all one family, as you can clearly see. There really is no difference between you and me. Your color may be red, green, black, or blue, but on the inside, there is no difference between me and you. Again, the peaceful solution. So here we're talking about respecting diversity, okay? Just this is another form or discipline of respect here. And if you remember, and we'll kind of go back briefly a little bit in the acceptance unit, because we talked a lot about diversity in the acceptance unit. We talked in the character unit about cultures and the different cultures in society and so forth. So we kind of stayed on that and continue to build up to this point right here. It says on page 60 there, along with communicating our needs appropriately, we must also respect others by appreciating and accepting their differences, okay? And to be transparent, right? Appreciating and accepting others and their differences does not necessarily mean accepting their immoral choices. It does not mean accepting their immoral behaviors and so forth, right? It's not a blanket coverage, like everybody just comes under one roof and whatever you do is great. We'll be buddy old pals no matter what. Oh, you're a murderer? Oh, that's all right. You're a great guy, No, you respect that person, that they have the right to live. They do have the right and the opportunity to learn. That's another right that people should have, is the right to be educated with the knowledge that will enable them to choose peace. Problem is that's not commonplace in society right now. So, even though we should appreciate and accept people and their differences, that does not mean that we are to accept their immoral behaviors and choices. Let's look to you probably don't have your books, but the acceptance unit, unit chapter 2. I'm just going to go back there and read it really quick there, because we talk a little more in detail about that there. Acceptance unit chapter 2, and I'm going to look at page 23. Where is my... Oh, okay. Yeah, that's a little bit different. The page numbers are on the inside. All right. So it says here, this is under the introduction there and the acceptance unit. You can write that down for your notes in case you don't have your book. And it's under the title Accepting Diversity. So we're talking about accepting diversity. And here we're talking about respecting diversity. So there is a difference between the two, but they go hand in hand. Look around you. Notice that no two people are exactly alike. Even twins who might be physically identical can have character and personality traits that are completely opposite. The next time you watch TV or go to the park or mall, notice the many different types of people there are. In addition to our physical differences, we also have different cultures and values. As you learned from previous chapters, people do not choose their physical characteristics or where they were born. What we can choose, however, is to accept and value each person as a unique human being who deserves to be treated with respect, compassion, and empathy. All right. And that is true for every person. Everyone, as we've covered over and over and over, deserves respect. Even that person that's sitting in jail, behind bars, or whatever the case might be, they deserve respect. All right. And so that's constant, right? That remains the same. Let's look at the next paragraph there. It says, immoral, negative character should always be discouraged. Immoral, negative character should always be discouraged. All people should be accepted. If they display negative moral traits, those traits should be rejected and the behavior pointed out. And that really is a part of respect, because you show care and concern about a person enough to point out that if they are engaging in immoral behaviors, immoral character traits, hey, this is what you're doing. This is, and this behavior brings harm in this way. This is what you could do to turn that around. Okay, you actually show care and concern for the person. Now, they have to still make the decision to change, just like we have to make the decision to change, to study this information and to put it into practice and find ways, think about ways where we can put these lessons into practice, these principles into practice in the daily lives. But pointing it out actually shows care and concern. No person should be rejected because of physical characteristics. And during the course of history, wars have been fought because of a lack of acceptance of people who are physically different. What causes people to mistreat and hate one another because of their physical and ethnic differences? Can we learn to coexist and respect each other, or will our differences continue to cause conflict, hatred, and war? This is posed in the question in the paragraph here. In this chapter, because this is to introduction for the student here, in the chapter of accepting diversity, in this chapter, we will explore these questions and more. You will learn that accepting others, looking past what makes us different, and focusing on our similarities will lead us to a place called appreciation and respect. All right? So just wanted to point that out and make that clear there. Accepting others and the differences in others does not necessarily mean accepting their or encouraging their immoral, negative behaviors or character traits. So it says here, as we go back to page 60 in the respect unit, the next sentence says, people come in all different shapes, sizes, nationalities, and cultures. Some are born mentally or physically challenged, while others might be in a wheelchair because of sickness or an accident, regardless of how different someone might appear to be. And I want you to kind of focus on that, because as we've moved along to this point in the peaceful solution, and we've gone through character, and we've pointed out the difference between personality and character, right? And shown how we have to be very careful not to judge a book by its cover. And if you look at this word appear here, the etymology of this word means come into view, to come forth, to be visible. All right? So regardless of how someone might appear to be, regardless of how someone might seem on the outside, right? How they look to you, because this is appearing, this is an appearance to you in your eyes, because when you see that person, based on how you see that person. Irregardless of that, they still deserve respect. Now, a student or a teacher of the peaceful solution, we're always going to be students, even if we're teachers, we're always going to be students of the peaceful solution. We're not going to take the first appearance, right? Because someone's a little bit different than us. Even if they're from another country, maybe a different nationality or culture, same country, different culture. Possibly they do have a physical handicap or something like that, or even a mental handicap. We know already that they deserve the same respect that the other person who might not be dealing with those things deserves. Okay. And as a student of the peaceful solution, if given the opportunity, we're going to take the time to get to know that person, right? To get a little insight into who that person is. And you'll be surprised the more educated that you are about a person, and even someone who might be facing some type of a physical or mental challenge, the more you know. And the more you're able to interact with people in a way that possibly they're more receptive to. Because I'm telling you, when people know that you genuinely care about them and that you have a genuine interest in their betterment or well-being, man, they're more willing to listen to you. I think it was Dale Carnegie who said, "People don't care what you know until they know that you care." They don't care what you know. You could have the greatest knowledge and information in the world, and they probably will less likely give you the time of day until they know that you have a genuine interest in helping them. And as students of the peaceful solution, that is our ultimate goal, is to help society to become a better place. And the best way to demonstrate that is through our application of the principles that we're learning in these books, okay? And we don't have to put on the show. It's not like, oh, here comes a whole bunch of people. Let me become a person of integrity and self-control. No, these are things we should be doing all the time, 24 hours a day, right? It becomes who you are as an individual. You are the peaceful solution when you make it a part of your everyday life. So it says here, regardless of how different someone might appear to be, they still deserve respect. Respecting diversity means not teasing, putting others down, or ignoring people because of their nationality, physical appearance, or disability. In fact, I want to go back to chapter 2 there in the note to the teacher of the acceptance unit. And this is entitled, it says, under notes to the teacher, failing to accept the differences in others has led to untold suffering for many innocent people throughout history. It is difficult to imagine looking at another living, breathing human being and physically, emotionally, or psychologically abusing them because of the color of their skin, their age, or place of birth. Yet, every day, people both young and old are victims of discrimination and prejudice. They are beaten and spat upon, humiliated, and demoralized because they are perceived, right? This is a perception from the mind of the individual who's looking at them, where the next person who's standing right by them sees them as just another person. But because of the upbringing, the training, the environment, the influences that one person might have had, they see that person as their enemy or as someone who is worth less, someone who does not deserve life, who does not deserve to breathe the same air that I'm breathing or to stand on the same land that I'm standing and so forth. And they demonstrate that through their words and their actions towards others. But just how different are we? Do our differences warrant the hostilities and hatred that have become commonplace between people everywhere? Of course, the answer is no. It is a proven fact that intolerance and hatred are learned behaviors. If children can be taught to hate, well, then they can be taught to value life and to have compassion for others. As educators, we have the monumental task, and it is a monumental task because these things have been built for hundreds, even possibly in dealing with certain cultures, thousands of years. It's a monumental task of teaching children to value the lives, health, and well-being of every human being, regardless of how different they might be. Someone once said that the highest form of education is tolerance, okay? And that there was from the acceptance unit, chapter 2, note to the teacher. So let's go back to page 60 here in our respect unit. And we're in the second paragraph there. It says, people tend to disrespect others because they do not know enough about them or do not understand them sufficiently. Just how different are we? So this, again, reiterates to the fact that education is important. Yes, education does not always mean going and opening up a book and reading. That is a form of education, but sometimes educating yourself just means going and talking to someone, right? Getting to know them, asking them a little bit about their culture, asking them a little bit about their background, how they grew up. Even if you're talking to someone who might be disabled, how did that occur? Was it an accident? Because sometimes it is accident. Some people aren't born disabled. Sometimes they might have been in a car accident. They could have been. I think even our governor, he wasn't always in a wheelchair. The governor of Texas, Greg Abbott, he was exercising and jogging, and I believe he was injured by a tree. Something actually fell on him, and then now he's wheelchair bound. So there are many different things that can take place in a person's life, and a lot of people, like I said, they don't mind talking to you about it. They just want to know that you're genuinely interested and not looking to exploit them in some way. Because sometimes people will do that. They look for a way to get information and to use it against a person later on in life. You see this a lot in the political debates, sadly. So just how different are we? Well, an article published in July 2001 shows that people are share more similarities than differences. The article states that human beings are 99.9% alike in their genetic sequence, and proves that there is only one race, which is the human race. You can go to Google, Bing, Yahoo, whatever other different search engines there are, and type that up, and that's still the case today. They have not discovered anything different. If anything, they are continually discovering how much closer we are than what we think we are, right? And showing that this 99% goes deep and wide, 99.9%. But, again, this intolerance, this prejudice, this not respecting of diversity, this is a learned behavior. In other words, if you had 100 pennies, the difference in the human species would amount to only 1/10 of 1 penny. That's this 0.1% gives us different physical characteristics such as skin color and hair texture. And then you see at the bottom there it says, appreciate and accept us for who we are. And you've got kind of a representation of a lot of different cultures and nationalities and religions and so forth. So let's look over to page 61 there under Straight Talk. At the very top there it says, don't let the fact that someone looks different stop you from being respectful and polite. Always consider that to another person, you might be the one who looks different. And you find that out very quickly when you go to another country and you're the only one there, maybe not the only one, but you become the minority very quickly. Fly over to some place like China, or Japan, or even Russia, or Uzbekistan, or someplace like that. A person like me, I'm going to be the minority. First off, I don't even speak the language. And even if I did speak the language, they'd know, most of the time people know right away that you're not a native speaker based on your dialect, because there's even different dialect differences, right? But I can't go to a place like China or Russia or Australia or someplace and think, wow, these people sure look strange, Oh, they're offering me a little vodka. Remember, it was an insult to not accept vodka and alcoholic beverage in Russia, so I'm going to stay away from Russia for now. But, there's different cultural differences, different facial differences, features, physical featuristics and so forth, But really, to them, I'm the one that's the oddball out, okay? So always consider that to another person, you might be the one who looks different. Treat that person in the same manner you would want to be treated. Putting yourself in someone else's place and considering how that person would feel is called empathy. And what goes right along with this empathy, it's a requirement, is humility. You have to have humility in order to practice empathy. Because if you don't have humility, you're not going to care about being in somebody else's shoes. You're not going to care about how that person feels. You're only going to care about yourself. And if anything in regards to the thoughts of that person is, what can that person do for me? That's it. So in order to have this empathy, you also have to have this character trait of humility, right? To want to understand, to want to educate yourself and to find out, what is life like for this person? How can I be of help or assistance for them? How can I make things a little bit easier for them, right? How can I be a true friend to this person? Having empathy plays an important role in learning how to accept and respect the differences in others. It is a positive character trait worth striving for, and that's very, very true. And then, of course, these are things that we have to emphasize to our students when we read over them, so that we're not just glancing over these things, but pointing these things out to them to help them to understand why these characteristics are important when they're dealing or interacting with other people. So look under the arrows there. It says in the middle of page 61, respecting others also means treating those who are mentally or physically challenged with compassion and consideration. I just wanted to read something real quick on the mental and the physical challenges there, because I just looked up some statistics there. Now, of course, right now, our current world population is like 8.021 billion people, approximately, right? Numbers are constantly changing every second. And so the question is, how many people in the world have a mental illness? And it's over 970 million people, they estimate. They put the number right at about 1 billion people in the world are affected by a mental health or substance use disorder. Mental health issues are one of the leading causes of disability across the globe, whereas they are the number one reason for disability in the United States of America. All right, that's mental health or substance abuse. It says also here, that's from thezebra.com. This next one here, I believe, is from WHO. In recent years, there has been an increasing acknowledgement of the important role mental health plays in achieving global development goals, as illustrated by the inclusion of mental health in the Sustainable Development Goals. Depression is one of the leading causes of disability. Suicide is the fourth leading cause of death among 15 to 29-year-olds. People with severe mental health conditions die prematurely, as much as 2 decades early, due to preventable physical conditions. Despite progress in some countries, people with mental health conditions often experience severe human rights violations, discrimination, and stigma, right? And this ties right back into them not being respected, right? People not having empathy for them, right? They just kind of want to put them off in a little box somewhere because they have something that is a little bit different than them. Many mental health conditions can be effectively treated at a relatively low cost, yet the gap between people needing care and those with access to care still remains substantial. And they go on a little bit here. It says, mental health conditions are increasing worldwide, mainly because of demographic changes. There has been a 13% rise in mental health conditions and substance use disorders in the last decade to 2017. And mental health conditions now cause 1 in 5 years lived with disability. Oh, okay. Because sometimes people can kind of be taken off disability as well. Around 20% of the world's children are adolescents and have a mental health condition. With suicide, the second leading cause of death among 15 to 29-year-olds, and approximately 1 in 5 people in post-conflict settings have a mental health condition. So these are people who are in areas, maybe even countries, where they've experienced a war, right, a post-conflict setting, and then they have sometimes what's called PTSD, or post-traumatic stress disorder. So these are things that are affected as well. And so it's not just, these mental challenges are not just what the common, like mental retardation and so forth. There's a lot of other things that are classified as mental challenges, right? And you also have the physical as well. It says, let's see here. Well, we'll move forward here. But respecting others also means treating those who are mentally or physically challenged with compassion and consideration. Have you ever considered how different life must be for someone who is blind or in a wheelchair? When you are sighted, It's what they call people who are not blind. Not that you were peeking around the corner and someone found you. It is easy to take for granted that you can see your family, friends, and everything around you. And it's very easy for us to take almost everything for granted. I know that whenever I do have to travel out of town for work or whatever, you kind of take certain things for granted. And when you're out of town or far away from home and you don't have access to those things, you realize how much you really need them and how much you really depend on them. But not just things, people as well. I feel the most at home and comfort when I'm among when I'm among people who have the same mind, people who are practicing the peaceful solution. That's when I feel the most comfort and at home, and those are things that we can tend to take for granted if we're not being very careful. It's just as easy to take for granted that being ambulatory or free to walk, jump, and run. It's easy to take that for granted. Being ambulatory simply means able to walk about, and you're not bedridden. Now, it kind of ties in a little bit to ambulance, but it's not the same thing as ambulance. Most people who are in an ambulance are not ambulatory. But the word ambulance means, it really just means a walking or a mobile hospital. That's what the word ambulance means, okay? People who are disabled have many challenges in their lives, but they are the same as you and me. They deserve to be shown the same respect as everyone else. We all have the same right to live our lives to the fullest and to live up to our highest potential. By showing respect to all people, we see that we are not so different after all. And that, that kind of goes along with what we covered, or goes right along with what we covered in the acceptance unit, just because someone might be in a different situation with you, like you see the example of the young men off to the side there on the page. You have two of the young men who are standing, and one is in a wheelchair. Now, can you look at those men? The two men that are standing. Can you tell if one is blind, one is even deaf with an F, not a TH, right? No, you can't tell that until you actually talk to them and get to know them, right? But does that mean because they might have some type of a difference or a handicap or just a challenge? They might be challenged in some way that they are worth less as an individual, or not worthy of having the same amount of respect displayed towards them. No, the same amount, right? It doesn't mean we have to baby a person. It just means that we treat them with the same respect that we would treat anybody else. In fact, a lot of people who have been in these situations for a long time, they'll tell you, don't give me any special treatment, right? Just treat me like a normal person. I just want to be treated and accepted and appreciated like everybody else. I might not have any legs, or I might be handicapped, or I might not have any arms, but I'm the same as you are. I like to eat. I like to enjoy people's company. I like to feel appreciated and valued and so forth. So this is what we're getting out of this as teachers of the peaceful solution. And of course, we have to relay this to our students, because a lot of times students will see and encounter things that they might not have ever seen before, right? We've been in different places where people have never seen people of different colors, of certain ethnicities and backgrounds and so forth. And it's a shocker to them, right? I mean, they weren't disrespectful about it, but they just were like, whoa, wow, I've never seen a black person or this person like that, and it's just new to them. But when you teach people to accept diversity, then it still might be new and exciting to them, but they won't be disrespectful in that excitement, right? They'll welcome them, they'll show them with care, concern, and they'll also show empathy towards them as well. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to stop right there. We're going to pick up at that bottom part there, a few steps for accepting the diversity of others on page 61. And our next class is going to be the 15th, April 15th. That's tax day. I'm not looking forward to that. It's going to be March 15th, this upcoming Wednesday, 5:30 Central Standard Time. We look forward to seeing you. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for joining us online. Everyone have a wonderful evening.